the name of the webinar is Job Embedded PD, PTKLF Teaching Tips for Back to School. The PTKLF is the what? Again, it's the preschool transitional kindergarten learning foundations. So it's a set of learning foundations, and it describes the knowledge and skills that most children ages 3 to 5.5 can be expected to achieve in high quality early education programs. Then the how would be the DRDP 2025 or DRDP 2015. If you're still using 2015, that's perfectly fine. Basically, the DRDP would be the how. So it's an assessment tool, and it's the instrument that educators use to observe and measure a child's progress based on the standards outlined in the PTKLF. And then we're going to see on Learning Genie how they connect and how we can make sure to implement the PTKLF and using DRDP for assessment. All right, so just a couple changes. Since previously we had the California Preschool Learning Foundations, now with the addition of TK, well, that's one of the big changes, of course. TK was included. Then there's a new domain in PTKLF, Approaches to Learning. If you were already doing DRDP, well, you're already familiar with Approaches to Learning, but it has been included in PTKLF. The age labels, well, for early foundations for preschool, it's from 3 to 4.5 years. And then for TK, it's later foundation from 4 to 5.5. There were 45 new foundations added to the PTKLF. And then for alignment with kindergarten, it now has a stronger alignment with the Common Core standards for a smoother transition into kindergarten. Just an overview. I see that most of you are already familiar with the PTKLF, but these are the domains. And PTKLF, Approaches to Learning, Social Emotional Development, Foundational Language Development. This includes ELD, then mathematics, science, physical development, health, history, social science, and visual and performing arts. Also, the new DRDP 2025 has been released. I just wanted to put this here so you could see a little comparison of, for example, for preschool, what that looks like from the 2015 and now the 2025 has a little less measures. Not everyone is using DRDP 2025 at the moment. It's not mandatory to use it this year, but I did want to mention that it has been included in Learning Genie in case someone wants to use it now, in case your agency wants to use DRDP 2025, that is included in Learning Genie. So this is just a quick overview of both 2015 and 2025, what they look like. And lastly, I had sort of this analogy between PTKLF and DRDP. If it serves as a reference, if you find it useful, maybe the PTKLF is sort of like the cookbook that contains all the recipes, the knowledge, and skills that define what a high-quality early education experience looks like for children. And then the DRDP, again, is the how. So it's the assessment. So it would be sort of like the chef's tasting. It's the tool that educators use to taste the food while they're cooking, observing, and documenting a child's progress as it happens. So this is something that I'm going to share with you. I'm going to share the slides. If you find them useful, this is sort of a bit of an analogy that you can use. Now, the circle of inquiry that I mentioned in the agenda, I just wanted to show what Learning Genie is capable of. So Learning Genie, if you use it for portfolio, that's not all that it does. We have also the reports. And before actually going into assessment, we can plan, we can have lessons in Learning Genie, and that's the part where we're going to be focusing on. But the way Learning Genie usually works is that you can plan for your week. So you can have lessons on Learning Genie, and we're going to see today how to create them, how to automatically generate lessons on Learning Genie. Then you can implement them through your week in your classroom. Then you can observe those measures. You can rate them. You can reflect on the progress because we have many reports that you can use on Learning Genie and do the whole thing again and again for the assessment. But of course, it's a lot of information. Again, I'm just going to focus on planning and show you what that looks like with the video.
PTKLF training for every teacher with summer right around the corner. That's where Learning Genie's job embedded PD comes in. It gives coaches and teachers the power to generate PTKLF-aligned lesson plans or adapt their existing curriculum without needing extra prep time or separate PD sessions. Let's take a look. First, go to learning-genie.com. If you don't have an account, click the Sign Up for Free button, click on Early Learning, and follow the steps. If you already have an account, click the Sign In button, then select Early Learning to get started. Input your email and password and hit Sign In. Once you're in your account, go to the Reflective Planning tab and access the Lesson Library. Here you'll find a library of all the lesson plans you create using this tool. And to create a new one, just click the Create or Adapt Lesson button. You can then start creating a completely original lesson plan or adapt a lesson from your curriculum. To do so, you will only have to copy and paste the description of the activity, such as expressing kind words. Through interactive activities, students will develop an understanding of kindness, practice using kind words and actions, and spread kindness within their school community. You can then add any adaptation ideas such as, we have Play-Doh and popsicle sticks in the classroom. Please share a relevant book. Then just select the grade. Select the state standards and choose the specific standards or foundations you'd like to implement for this lesson plan. You can choose the specific standards, or you can let Learning Genie Auto adapt the lesson plan. Just by selecting the correct domains, the tool will select the most appropriate foundations. Lastly, you can choose to localize your lesson, making it more relevant, inclusive, and connected to your community. Once you're ready, hit Generate and watch the AI Lesson Assistant instantly adapt a lesson aligned to PTKLF tailored to your classroom needs. Now, let's break down everything included in your AI-generated lesson plan. First, clear learning objectives aligned with PTKLF, so teachers know exactly what skills they're targeting. You'll also get a materials list to make prep fast and stress-free, including a read-aloud video book that pairs perfectly with the activity. Implementation steps walk teachers through the lesson, step by step, perfect for modeling or independent planning. Teaching tips for standards are the core of Learning Genie's job embedded PD. They're tailored to each lesson plan and aligned to specific PTKLF domains, giving educators clear, practical strategies they can try right away. It's the best way to explore and apply the new PTKLF framework directly in daily practice, and gives coaches ready-to-use materials to guide and support their teachers along the way. Typical behaviors and observation tips show what success looks like in real classroom moments, and they're aligned with DRDP measures, helping educators easily connect daily instruction with required assessment. It takes the guesswork out of what to observe, making documentation more meaningful and efficient. Universal design strategies are built right in to support IEPs and English learners, no extra work required. This helps create inclusive classrooms where all children can access and engage with the learning equally. And once the lesson plan is adapted to your classroom, Learning Genie continues to support each child's unique needs, providing individualized strategies and scaffolds as needed. You'll also find culturally and linguistically responsive practices, helping teachers connect lessons to students' real lives. It provides support for integrating cultural elements using multilingual labels and signs, and using culturally diverse visual aids. And finally, each lesson includes family resources and at-home activities, simple to share with parents, who can add their own observations to support assessment. It's everything teachers and coaches need, ready in seconds, right when they need it. Use it directly within Learning Genie or download it as a PDF or Word document to fit your workflow. Learning Genie's job embedded PD takes the pressure off coaches, empowers teachers, and brings PTKLF to life, one meaningful lesson at a time. Start for free now.
All right, so what do you think? This is what we're gonna be looking at today. So it's basically a tool that will let us generate lessons out of just having the theme, for example, just giving it a brief description. If you're not familiar with it, we're gonna jump into it right now so you can see what it's all about. But if you'd like to let me know in the chat what you think, that'd be wonderful. All right, so then, as I was mentioning at the beginning, I recently I was at some on-site trainings, and I realized that maybe I can take it a little bit slower. So if everyone is, I see in the chat, it is a great tool. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you like it. If you'd like to follow along with me so we can actually test the tool, I'm going to take it from the very beginning. So you're already familiar with Learning Genie. If you're sort of new to Learning Genie, maybe just starting this year, the way to access it on your website, on your laptop, is going to be learning-genie.com. I see in the chat, it will need lots of practice. Hopefully, with this run that we're going to do together, hopefully that's going to take some of that feeling out. Maybe it's going to be it's going to look a little bit easier with this webinar today. All right. So again, learning-genie.com. This is Learning Genie's website. And we can go ahead and, oops, sorry, sign in. If you already have your account, then we're going to go to sign in. Sign in, and then we're going to select early learning. Okay. We're using Learning Genie in our school. I see in the chat. Perfect. Then yeah, if you already have your Learning Genie account, again, we're going to go to sign in. So once I'm in this page, all I have to do is input my email, input my password, and hit sign in. And if everyone is up to this point with me, this is sort of what you would see. Now, every account is different. Mine has a lot of modules right here because this is my test account. This is what I use to present on the webinars. However, you may see this a little bit different. Okay. Here you're going to have your classrooms. You're already familiar with them. But the tool we're going to use, it's going to be right here where it says reflective planning. Now, if you do not have this, if you're following along with me and you do not have reflective planning, that means you do not have the tool turned on your account. If that's the case, don't worry. You can pilot it. So please feel free to fill out the form that I put in the chat. And then once you fill it out, we're going to reach out to you so we can turn it on for you and you can start using it on your account. Okay. I would have to do that after the webinar. So if you don't have this reflective planning portion, don't worry, I'll let the team know and then we'll add it as soon as possible to your account, okay? For the ones that are following along with me, again, reflective planning, and then we're gonna go to this one right here, lesson library. All right, under lesson library, this is what we're gonna see. We're gonna have right here a library of all the lessons that I have in my account, the lessons that I have created, and we're going to have this button that says create or adapt lesson. If you'd like to follow along with me, let's click on it. And this is what we're going to see. So we have this box to create a lesson. As you saw in the video, then what Learning Genie is doing with this is that you can actually generate lessons using Learning Genie's AI tool to create um, lessons from scratch. So if you're already using a curriculum in your school, if you have if you see any gaps in your curriculum, maybe your curriculum has lessons for, I don't know, for English, for social and emotional, but maybe you don't have anything for math and you want to create a specific lesson for math, maybe using the blocks that you have in your classroom, then you can come in here and then you can create a lesson specifically for that. All right, so this is how it works. You can generate anything that you need for your classroom. Now, under create lesson, basically we would do that, create something from scratch. And if we go to adapt lesson, here it's basically, again, for the same reason. If we have a lesson from our curriculum that we want to use in our classroom, we can take it here and basically just add that to Learning Genie. So for example, maybe I see that I have a lesson in my curriculum talking about the I'm gonna say the butterfly's life cycle, anything like that. Then I can just take it from my curriculum, write it here, and then when I generate it, Learning Genie is going to give me the teaching tips that we looked at in the video, and it's going to adapt it to my specific needs for my classroom. So if this is what I want to talk about, I'm describing it here. Now, we can add some guiding questions. For example, I can let Learning Genie know what I want the lesson to be about. So I can add a description. So for example, I could say, please talk about the butterfly's life cycle in their first 2 days or anything like that. Um, or I can have the children in my classroom help guide the lesson. That's a pretty interesting um, portion of this is that you can actually co-create the lessons with the children. You can actually have them let you know what they want to learn about. And then that'll definitely help to keep them engaged, and they're going to have lots of more fun actually helping generate the content that they're going to be learning. So maybe I could say, and maybe we can do this as an activity really quick. If someone would like to jump in the chat and let me know a guiding question that I can have over here, and I'll put one as an example just to start. I can say, what do butterflies eat, for example? And then if someone would like to help me out in the chat, this is sort of simulating what we would do with the children, right? So we would tell them, what would you like to learn about butterflies? Maybe they'll say, how do they sleep? How long do they live? Um, I don't know, where do they migrate? What colors, where do their colors come from? Or what different sizes are there for butterflies? Anything like that. In the meantime, I can add, how do they sleep? Where, or maybe I can say, why do they have different colors? And then under personalization and adaptation, I can add any specific things that I need for my lesson. So maybe I want to have um, an indoors lesson. Maybe I just want to focus it in the classroom, or maybe I want to do an outdoors lesson. I can say, uh, please do an outdoors lesson. Uh, we have a playground. Oh, thank you. I see from Miss Kim, which says, how long is a butterfly in a cocoon? That's perfect. So yeah, when we interact with the children, that would be sort of what it would look like. They're going to start asking some questions, and we can go ahead and add them here to guide Learning Genie to create the lesson for us. All right. So maybe I can add some personalization, and that's the reason why I was talking about adapting a lesson. Again, if you have a curriculum and if you have a lesson there and you would like to personalize it to your classroom, you can type it in here from your curriculum, and then you can do any adaptations for it. So I'm telling Learning Genie that I want an outdoors lesson, and then all I have to do is fill this out, which is really easy. I just need to select the grade. If you're following along with me, please select the grade right here. I'm going to do preschool. I recall that I saw in the chat someone using someone in the infant toddlers program. We also have for infants, for young toddlers and toddlers, you can select the most appropriate one. And then we're going to select the state standards. So we're talking about the new PTKLF. So under United States, under California, I can go ahead and select the new PTKLF. Then we would need to select the specific standards that we wanna go through in this lesson. We can go and select specific standards right here. So we can select anything from approaches to learning. All the measures are going to be here. Anything from science, for example. However, if I'm not really sure, I don't have to do it like this. I don't have to do it manually one by one. Learning Genie also has this portion. If you're new to the PT, well, everyone's new to the PTKLF, um, but if you're not that familiar with it, you can just choose auto adapt it, and then you can select just the domain, and then Learning Genie will select the most appropriate one. So that's pretty cool. So I can select, let's say, science, and since we're doing an outdoors activity, maybe we can do even physical development. So then I can select both of them, science and physical development. And as you can see, it's cross-disciplinary. We don't have to stick just with one specific domain, and then we can do from two different domains. I'm sorry, I'm seeing in the chat. Sometimes we can only select 8 domains. They will not allow more than 8 domains. Well, the best practices are, when you're adding an observation, for example, is not to do more than 4 measures so that you can, oh, were you talking about the domains? You're talking about here where you cannot select more than 8? I think I will look into that. I've never tried selecting that many. But I guess, well, I can give the feedback to the team, see if that's something that we need to add, um, so that we can include that many. Then I see, do you have to always use the lesson plan area on web page, or can we do it in the app or an iPad? It's available now in the iPad. You can actually use it in the iPad. It's going to be on the left-hand side, just like here on the reflective planning, and then you can access the lesson library, and then you'll be able to do that in the iPad as well. I see in the chat, it seems the domains are different now. Are these the new ones? The ones I'm using are the PTKLF. Yes. So it's the new PTKLF. Again, right here where it says state standards. I'm using from California, the new preschool transitional kindergarten learning foundations. All right. Okay, then I can go ahead and select the domains. And lastly, the very last thing that we can do to generate a lesson is that we can localize it. Now, this feature is pretty cool. Now that we're talking about butterflies, for example, we can make sure that Learning Genie talks about the specific butterflies that we may find in that area where we live. That's pretty interesting in case we don't need to localize it specifically to where we are, but we can actually localize it to other places. But for this specific example, I'm going to select California. And then if someone would like to let me know their city in the chat. If not, I can select a random one. Apple Valley. Okay. Let's see if Apple Valley is here. Apple Valley. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. All right. So that's everything we have to do. I mean, um, this is easier than actually spending the night generating our or creating our action plans from scratch. Basically, this tool will let us give it a theme, a brief description of what we want or some guiding questions, how we want to personalize it. We just select the grade, select the standards, the domains, and we can localize it if we want to. If not, it's important to mention that you can always just turn it off, okay? We'll leave it on for this one, and then we can generate it. And as you saw in the video, then Learning Genie will start creating the lesson plan for me. And then once it's finished, sorry, we can go over it. If you have more questions, please let me know in the chat. If you're following along with me, if you can let me know in the chat, if you can let me know maybe what you created it about, if you used your own theme, or if you're doing butterflies just like me. I see in the chat on our Learning Genie framework shows preschool fundamental view. Yes, so that means you're using the DRDP 2015, and for your classroom, the preschool fundamental view is the one that was assigned. Um, I If you have any questions, if that's the one you should be using, then you can let your admin know. But um, I suppose that's the one that you should be using, preschool fundamental view. Uh, I see from Ms. Grace for the activity description, you can ask more questions for the lessons. Yes, you should be able to ask more questions so you can add the description, anything that you like in the description so that it can tailor it for you. Yes. Will this Zoom be recorded? Yes, it is being recorded, and I will send an email with the recording so you can go over it in case you have any questions. I also see family lesson plan. It does give you activities for the families at the very bottom. Right here, we have family resources, and we have some activities that we can share with the parents, and I'll show you at the end how we can do it, okay? All right. Well, I'm going to go through the whole thing. Lastly, I see in the chat, can you add modifications for children with IEP? Yes, we can. We can individualize the lesson plan, and I'll go over it in just a second, okay? All right. So again, I'm taking it slow so that you can see all that Learning Genie does. And if you're following along with me so that you can go through your own lesson plan as well and see what Learning Genie created for you. I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit more so you can see a little better. So if you recall, I said butterflies life cycle as the theme for my lesson plan. But Learning Genie actually generates it even generates like a new title for me. It's Butterfly Wonders, and then it adds sort of an sort of an image that we can use. It took it from online from LouisvilleZoo.org. It always gives you all the references where it's taking information from. This, if you don't want to use it, you can always change it in case you need it, but I'll just leave it like that. Then it says that it's for preschool. It's the grade that I selected. It's using the PTKLF. It's the framework that I selected. And then I asked Learning Genie to select the most appropriate measures. So it selected the ones from science. It selected science 1.1, 1.3, 3.6, and 3.7. And then we're going to see what those actually are in just a second. Then it gives me the preparation time. How long for me as a teacher is going to take me to prepare for this lesson, and how much actually, what is the actual duration for the activity. Now, you don't have to ever stick with just what Learning Genie is giving you. If you want to add anything to the title, you can. If you want to change the prep time, if you want to change the activity duration time, you can, okay? And that's not only for this area, that's for everything on Learning Genie, okay? Because I've had the question before, like, what's going to happen to our creativity? Well, this is just a tool. It's just a tool to help you generate this a little bit easier, but all your creativity is there. You can let Learning Genie know what you want to do. You can let Learning Genie know exactly the theme, the description, and then once it generates it, again, you can go in and make all the changes that you want, okay? So then what do we see? What do we see next? The objectives. It's going to give me the objectives of what I'm going to be teaching. So just as an example, this one says, children will explore and understand the life cycle of a butterfly, focusing on its needs and changes as it grows. Through interactive storytelling and hands-on activities, children will practice observing, asking questions, and understanding the essential needs of living things. So that's what we're going to be looking at through this lesson. Then the materials. This is what we're going to need. The butterfly life cycle visuals, pictures or cards, colorful butterfly puppets or toys, leaves and pretend nectar using small cups and colored water, and storybook about butterflies, A Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle. And I'll show you in just a second that you don't actually need to have the book, okay? So Learning Genie, if Learning Genie is letting you know that you're gonna need a book, it's because Learning Genie is providing the book for you, okay? So if I scroll a little bit down to the implementation steps, as you can see, I have the book right here. So what Learning Genie does is that to make it easier, it's giving you a read aloud of the book. So if I click on it, as you
My
can
work is easy
see,
because
I'm gonna have this The Very Hungry Caterpillar official animated film made for kids, so it's a read aloud of the book.
The Very Hungry Caterpillar.
and then I can go ahead and use it in my classroom.
He started to look for some food.
And all the resources are going to be there for me, okay? I see in the chat, is there a section of this can be shared with the parents instead of overwhelming them with the whole lesson plan, please? Yeah, so we can actually just share the activities with them, the family activities. We don't have to share the entire lesson plan with them because this is what us as teachers are going to be using, but I'll show you in just a second the family plan at the very bottom. No, thank you, Mr. Risa. All right, so then we have the implementation steps. So we were looking at the materials, now implementation steps. What are we actually going to do? I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I don't want to overwhelm you, but for example, it starts from the very beginning. Invite the children to sit in a circle and introduce the butterfly life cycle. Transition into a storytelling session with the very hungry caterpillar, which we already have here. You can ask some questions, open-ended questions like, what do you think the caterpillar will eat next week? And how do you think the caterpillar feels inside the cocoon? And more, so on and so on. We have the rest of the implementation steps. If you need any more resources, you're going to have them right here that you can use. And then this is the star of the webinar. So this is what we were talking about. If you recall, the webinar is called Job Embedded PD, PTKLF Teaching Tips for Back to School. So that you can start implementing the new PTKLF, Learning Genie has created this portion, Teaching Tips for Standards, which basically has the PTKLF foundations that we're going to be using. They're going to be right here. These are all four that we're going to be using. If you recall, it's Science 1.1, 1.3, so on and so on. If I scroll to the top, those are the ones that Learning Genie chose for me. If, again, I selected auto mode so that Learning Genie chose the most appropriate ones, but I can always go in and just add the ones that I want, okay? Now, what did these look like? So the teaching tips for the standards basically are gonna let me know how I can teach in order to make sure we're using these foundations. So Science 1.1, for example, is making observations. So how I can do it, here are my teaching tips. So while displaying the butterfly life cycle cards, ask children to look closely and describe what they see using words like color, shape, or big and small. So then I know that I can encourage them to go through this specific measure. And I see in the chat, I'm not clear as to why they are called standards by Learning Genie and foundations in the PTKLFs. Um, we're gonna go ahead and I think we're gonna make that change. The reason right here it says standards is because it's also a little bit general because they're not always gonna be for PTKLF. So Learning Genie, as you can see, when I was generating the lesson, I selected the PTKLF, but um, it's not everyone's going to be using PTKLF. Hopefully that makes sense. So we can actually have it, like as someone in the chat mentioned, for infant toddlers. So then it's going to have the teaching tips for standards, but it's not going to be for PTKLF. It's going to show it for maybe DRDP 2015 infant toddlers. And then, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm going to see with the team, maybe if we can actually have this say foundations when we're using the PTKLF. And hopefully that answers the question. Thank you, Ms. Miller. I also see, can lessons be modified for infant toddlers? I see that in the chat. Yes. So at the beginning when we were generating it, if you recall, I selected preschool, but if you want to do it for infant toddlers, you can select infant toddlers. And so this is the start of the show. So this will give you the teaching tips for those specific foundations that we're implementing. I'm going to just read another example, Science 1.3, which is asking questions. These are the tips that Learning Genie is giving me. So during the storytelling, pause and invite children to raise their hands if they wonder what happens to the caterpillar next or have questions about the story. So As you may have already noticed, this is talking about specifically about the lesson that I created. So they're never going to be general. They're never going to be generic tips. So it's not just a line. Actually, the PTKLF and any framework we use on Learning Genie is actually embedded on Learning Genie. So when Learning Genie creates lessons for me, all the teaching tips, all the everything that it generates is going to be um, aligned to the standards, and it's going to be customized for that specific lesson. So all the teaching tips right now are talking about butterfly life cycles. They're talking about the caterpillars. They're talking about the specific activity. If I go on and do a lesson about Thanksgiving, then all the all the tips are going to be tailored to the Thanksgiving theme for that specific lesson. All right, hopefully that makes sense. Then we also have typical behaviors and observation tips. This is to support now for the DRDP. So the DRDP framework we're using right now, it's 2015 DRDP, and then it gives me the most appropriate measures for the assessment, for the actual assessment. So let's say, for example, cognition 9, which is inquiry through observation and investigation. This is the measure from DRDP that aligns best with the PTKLF measures that we're using, with the PTKLF foundations we're using. So cognition 9, and then we're going to have some typical behaviors and observation tips. So if I see, for example, that the child uses their fingertips to dip a puppet or toy into the pretend nectar, watching closely to see how it works during the role play activity. So then I can base my observations on what I'm seeing happening in that activity with the children. Now here, to answer the question, I recall there was a question about individualizing it. Was there? Can you add modifications for children with IEP? Yes. So here, this is going to be my universal design for differentiated learning. Basically, this gives me general support on how I can support children with IEPs in my classroom. And it's going to be very general. But then once I finish, I'll show you how to individualize it for all the children in the classroom, okay? This is the general portion, giving me general support. For example, offer a simplified role play script with basic movements and prompts. Use hand over hand support if necessary, guiding their arms gently to mimic flapping wings, and so on and so on. But then I'll show you how to do it for each specific child in my classroom. It'll give me support for English language learners as well. And then culturally and linguistically responsive practices. It will let me know how to have an inclusive classroom, how I can integrate cultural elements, how I can use multilingual labels and signs, and how I can use culturally diverse visual aids. And then I know I'm running out of time, so I'm rushing a bit. It's going to give me DLL vocabulary and phrases that I can use in my classroom. If you've never used these before, these are pretty cool because we have, for example, butterfly, well, again, the start of the show, the word that it's the start of the show in this lesson, butterfly, and then I can play it.
Butterfly.
But what I can do is actually go in, and when I edit this, I can add any languages that I have in my classroom. If maybe I have a child that speaks Chinese in my classroom, and then maybe I have a child that speaks French and a child that speaks German, I can add those languages, and then I can translate it. I can translate that for the children in my classroom. Maybe I can play it in Chinese,
蝴蝶 papillon
in French, and German,
Schmetterling
and then I can go ahead and use that in my classrooms. If I have any photos, that's pretty cool. We can go in and add photos. Let's say, I know I have this image resources. I don't have anything on a butterfly, but let's pretend just for a second that this is an image of a butterfly. When I use it in my classroom, this is what it's going to look like. So it's going to include the photo. So I can have the big photo of a butterfly, and then it'll help my ELD students understand a bit better what we're actually referring to when we say butterfly. Um, so it's a pretty useful tool that you have right here. And then lastly, the at-home activities. So if you have any, if you'd like to share this with the parents, these we've improved them now. We have them sort of as a step-by-step. So we can just check one, for example, activity one, it's called Butterfly Life Cycle Hunt. And then we can share this with the parents. Uh, they can do a picture walk so they can show their child simple pictures or drawings of each butterfly life stage. Toy or object hunt, they can hide small toys, paper cutouts, or objects representing each stage. Then observe and describe and sequence together. So we can have all the steps. These you can just copy and paste and send it as an activity to the parents so they can have it. You can choose activity one, you can choose activity two, or actually send both. And I think that's it. I know I ran out of time, sorry. Really quick, I just want to go through the question that I had in the chat, how to individualize this. So I'm going to show you. Once I finish with my lesson plan, I can go back to my lesson library. And then right here from my lesson library, I'm going to have it right here. What I can do here is that I can adapt it to my classroom. As you can see, it says adapt UDL and CLR. This is going to adapt it to my children in my classroom. If I have, let's say, I can't recall which classroom I have some children on in this account, but um, you can select your site, you can select your classroom right here, and then you're going to have the list of children in your classroom, as you can see. For example, I have Justin, Michael, and Chelly. And then for Michael, for example, I can see that Michael has an IEP, that his special eligibility is autism, and he needs visual support. I can also go in and add any goals as I need for any of the children. If I have any specific goals for IEP children, we can add them. So, for example, if I click here, I can go in and edit the children in my classroom, and then I can go ahead and add their IEP goals if I want to do that, so that Learning Genie tailors the support specifically for that IEP goal. Okay, right now I'm just gonna leave it like that for sake of time. But when I confirm and start adapting it, you're gonna see here that now it's adapting it for the specific children in my classroom. So I can see which children are ELD students, for example, Nina and Karen, and which children have an IEP, for example, Isaiah, or which children have actually both. I don't have any with both at the moment, but Isaiah has an IEP, so it will provide specific support for Isaiah. As you can see, it says, for example, just for him, offer a large, high contrast visuals of the butterfly life cycle to support Isaiah's peers participation. Use a tactile butterfly model with raised textures for exploration and understanding. Implement a communication device with voice prompts for expressing choices or describing actions. Oops, sorry. And so on and so on. It will give me specific support for each of the children in my classroom. And I see in the chat, is the lesson plan part of Learning Genie and additional cost to the district? I really would love to have this, especially for the dual language learners. Yeah, so at the moment, what I was mentioning at the beginning is that if you don't have it, right, if you don't see it in your account, you can request a pilot. Right here, I'm putting in the chat. It's a little form that you can fill out, and I'm actually going to go back to my presentation. Um, you can either fill out what I put in the chat, or you can scan this QR code, and it's going to take you to the same form. You can pilot it right now, and you can use it in your school, and then you can go ahead and create as many lesson plans as you want.